Ukiah want to do the roll call?
1 second here, Mayor.
I've seen Paul there.
I'm on the
He's
screen.
on.
There's a problem with the sound in this room. And so if he's in here and on the computer, then the echo is it's huge. So if he is right now sequestered in his office and still a part of this meeting. So will you do the roll call, please?
You want me to do it? Okay. Councilor Burris,
Aaron,
Here.
Councilor Henson,
I'm here.
Here.
Councilor Rios,
here.
Councilor Sandusky,
Here.
Councilor Hopkins. You can wave. There you go.
Here.
Councilor Reynolds
Here.
and Mayor Weber.
I'm here, thank you. So our first order of business is to address the minutes from April 20th. I will entertain a motion concerning those minutes.
I would move that we approve the minutes of that particular date.
420.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously, but you all have disappeared from my sight.
Need some duct tape?
I just slid off the table.
Did you fall down?
I have fallen and I can't get onto the camera. Okay. Next, we have 3 public hearings, and because of the virus and all that it entails and public meeting laws, we have advertised for information from the public, and we have heard nothing on any of these hearings. But I am going to turn the first part for the explanation to the supplemental budget over to Jamie. Jamie, would you like to give a quick explanation?
I guys in your packet and memo kind of went over everything that's in our supplemental budget, that the changes that we're needing to do to close out our end of our fiscal year. I can go through it page by page if you guys would like, or if there's something that you guys see that's kind of sticking out that you want some explanations on, we can do it that way.
Could you hit the high spots?
Yeah, I can hit the high spots. Absolutely. Do you guys want to go page by page, or do you want me just to go through each fund?
Just go through the funds as they're outlined on the memo.
Okay. So in the general fund, we have everything that's green is what we're changing this fiscal year. Our development fees have came in with 2 new developments that have came in. So we were able to bump that up to $125,000. The other stuff is just like small basic housekeeping, bringing our revenue up a little bit, which is nice. We did decrease some of them, like the school resource officer with schools closing. We're not going to get the funds for that. So I did drop that down. Administration, these changes are what we talked about when we changed job descriptions. So this is just making it to where we don't go over at the end of this year. Still in general fund. That is basically it for general fund. So it's just admin and revenues. Any questions on general fund? Okay, I'll go on to TRT. TRT, we decreased the hotel motel tax with COVID-19 changes right now. I don't think we'll be getting what we anticipated, so we dropped it down. Basic housekeeping again and personnel with some changes. Are you echoing?
Yes, are you experiencing an echo when you're listening to us? Because we can hear one here, and if you're getting an echo back, that sometimes makes it difficult to listen to.
Nothing? Okay.
You know, so-
It's fine for me right now.
I'll just listen to myself talk twice. Okay,
I can hear it, but it's not too terrible.
it's not bad. Oops. Hold on. You guys there? All right. Materials and services, all these change when our revenue changes. So you'll see the little farmer's market, how it kind of went down a little bit, same with chamber promotion. Just kind of basic housekeeping. The big thing is City Hall, we added an extra $40,000. This is for all the expenses that weren't paid for by Allegius. These are all the extra things that he didn't change or he didn't put in the contract. So these are our expenses, what Public Works did to make sure we could move in the doorway, all those things. So that is basically TRT. Any questions? Okay, head to streets. Streets, the big one that's gonna stick out is that Tura project loan fund. It's basically an in and out. We're gonna do a loan to them for $200,000 and in 5 days they will pay us back. It's so they can access their TIP funds. So you'll see that there and you'll also see it in materials and services. So it's an in and out. The transit center surplus that Paul's already kind of touched base on. Let's see what else, just housekeeping and personnel, same with personnel, or materials and services, sorry. And that's basically it besides the undergrounding expenses since that project has started this year, the contract you guys signed last council meeting. And our pavement patcher is added in. Oh, sorry. Did you hear that?
Yes.
That was a murder hornet.
That was loud. You'll see the pavement patcher added in there for the 12.5. I will be bringing you guys the paperwork on that loan. We actually have it in our fingers and they've started doing some patches last Friday with it and they love it. Any questions on streets? No? Okay. Water. Just basic housekeeping and revenues. Interest went up, so I just kind of calculated everything up. Personnel, just a little bit of housekeeping there with some employees that either were hired later on within the year just to make things work out better. And that was it for water. Any questions? All right, on the sewer. Sewer basically just basic housekeeping in this one too, bouncing things up where they needed to go up. Small little things in personnel, materials and services. The big one in sewer that you're going to see is going to be the $100,000 that we did the payment and judgment to, and legal fees. We had to bump both of those up to get everything closed out with the litigation. And that's it for sewer. Any questions on any of it? Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so later on the agenda is your resolution to adopt the supplemental. So I know it's a little hard to jump back and forth in Zoom, but hopefully if all of that made sense for you, then we can go ahead and adopt that resolution. That'll set us up for our budget meetings later this year because we'll have a stable budget from which we can work off from then for the rest of the preparation for next fiscal year.
Okay. So since we had no testimony at all on this, it is complete. We will move on to our second public hearing. This is a wrap up on it. Potential amendment of public contracting rules. Paul, would you like to take and explain that?
Actually, Jamie's taking the lead on this one too. This
Sorry,
is
Jamie.
Thanks, Paul. This is with the changes that they have made on public contracting rules. Our attorneys have changed everything that has taken place and added it in so we are compliant with all the ORSs and all the rulings that have changed, basically. Paul, do you remember all the details for this that stick out? I know something about we can add price in now.
Right. Yeah, there's three basic changes to it. The one is what Jamie's referring to is what used to be called qualification-based solicitations for architects and engineers. In other words, you could not ask them to submit a price during their bidding. You only could ask them about their qualifications, and then afterwards you negotiated the price. That law has been modified finally to allow price to come back in again, but we do need to change our purchasing rules to allow ourselves to do that. So that's a big change right there. And then a secondary smaller change is that any of your large contracts over 500,000, you have to essentially now take any retainage that you hold back, you have to stick it into a separate interest-bearing account. And so that is something we've never done before. We've always just held retainage, but now you actually have to separate it out, keep track of all the interest, and depending on how long that's held, it can accumulate whatever amount. And then that becomes part, because I guess the theory being is that it's the contractor's money, you're just holding it back. And then the last piece is really that for small procurements of goods and services, they've increased the threshold from 5,000 to 10,000. So that makes it a little easier to handle some of the smaller contracting pieces. Those are the key ones that I know of. And again, we received no input on that as part of the hearing.
Okay, John, you have a question?
I do. I noticed right at the beginning of it, and throughout it mentions, I think it's local public contracting board or some words to the, what does that mean? Was that already there?
That's you. That's the city council. Under our code, you serve that function.
Well, I was gone for a while. Sorry. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing nothing. Of course, that public hearing is completed. And next, our third one is the potential application for the community development block grant.
Okay, so this is submitted, Leanne submitted a memo to you, and this has to be available to the public as to what types of projects we've received block grants for in the past. And actually it was a kind of an interesting memo. We've done fairly well on block grants. The purpose of this hearing was to receive testimony from the public as to what they would like to see us apply for our next block grant for. We received no testimony. The staff recommendation is contained in the notice, and that is if city staff would like to apply for another $2.5 million grant. We have been successful with those in sewer. However, we can no longer apply for further sewer funds. We've reached the limit. And so we're going to switch our attention to water. And we would like to apply for a $2.5 million grant to build a in-town water reservoir as part of our resiliency. Also rehabilitate a number of internal wells, and also do some line work within the city. If we're successful with this grant, it'll be it has to be entirely within the city limits, because that is how we qualify for block grants, is based on income. And if we do things outside of the city limits, we have to essentially do a survey of income for anybody who might be affected by it. So to keep it simple, we're proposing to do all work within the city limits. So in your
Okay.
next item, if you understand everything and don't have any questions, you would make a motion to authorize staff to apply for a community development block grant for water facilities within the city.
Any questions? Okay, then we have not had any public testimony on this issue, and so this hearing is also completed. So we'll go right into new business. And that, the first item under new business is the Community Development Block Grant Project selection. And you heard the suggestion that Paul made as to the motion. So I would entertain a motion concerning this from a member of the council.
I move that we approve the application for a community development block grant connected to water programs within the city.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Does anyone have any questions?
Question.
The question is called for. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, did I get everybody? Those not in favor? Okay, that was unanimously in favor of applying for the block grant to benefit city water. Okay, now we have a discussion of the State of Oregon Executive Order. I sent you several things today, and you also have information in your packet as to the order.
Okay, you have, what the governor has done is extended the executive order into July. And essentially, there's not a lot of other detail that went with it. I was hoping for some more specific guidance to be received today. However, most of what I've seen has been drafts of various guidance on outdoor recreation and on phased reopening. But not a lot of black and white detail beyond just extending her previous executive order of 20-12. So within that, or with that, comes the question of what do we as a city do? Later on your agenda, you'll see that I have extended it one more month. And am asking to ratify that, but there are other things that we can do, and we don't have to do them in tonight's action, but if you can give me some guidance as to how you'd like to proceed, I'm still authorized to make provisions under our emergency ordinance, and we can do those and do them almost on a day-to-day basis, and then at your next meeting, we can ratify them further. So, you have received some correspondence from the Chamber of Commerce. They've essentially asked for three changes. One is opening up the parks to more access other than play equipment courts and the skate park. These are the things that are prohibited by the previous executive order. Essentially, there are some needs for signage that go with that, because while you're opening your park, you have to also encourage and support physical distancing. Secondly, they're looking for weekday boat ramp access for fishing and water sports, and they're recommending weekday access and weekend closures. This is something that we've discussed with the county sheriff and also to a degree with the county board of commissioners. And I think they're contemplating something similar for Memaloose and Netarts and Pacific City.
And
So,
Wheeler.
go ahead.
And Wheeler.
And Wheeler.
So north, south, central, and south.
Okay, so I think they're in the next couple of days going to be doing something like that. If you're interested, then we could match that with Carnahan and Sioux H. Elmore Park. So that's an option we can look at as well. And then the last bullet point from the chamber was to open up the availability of lodging within the city of Tillamook. We're not a beachfront lodging, so we probably won't be overwhelmed with beachgoers, but you could get fishermen and other increases in lodging that would probably be a modest step in terms of opening up some of the economic engines of the community.
May
So
I add that Justin has also contacted the motels, and they are ready for that. So, you know, if we're talking about the sheriff and the law enforcement being ready for the opening of the boat ramps, then the providers, the hotel and motel providers are also ready.
that's correct. And I've checked all of these against the governor's previous executive order, and none of them would violate any aspect of it.
Now, one of the reasons that the governor extended her order all the way to July was the possibility of an additional stimulus, and that money then would come to city governments, because, you know, our budgets are going to be severely strapped because of what's happening to the economy. And there are cities that are looking at laying off employees, and who knows what can happen. However, that is, she can lift it at any time, but extending it was her move to take care of that.
My understanding too, Mayor, my understanding was that I read an article today in the KGEW website there, and it pointed out that there's a distinction between her executive order on staying at home and then also the emergency declaration. So she extended the emergency declaration, but the stay at home one is a separate one, which is, I associated them together. I didn't realize they were separate, but for people
They're
to be.
Yes. She has been looked to for a lot of guidance, and a lot of it is not forthcoming. And like Rebekah pointed out, the class we took, it filters down, and, you know, we can take care of what we need to take care of with the broad definitions being given to us. And the county is being relied on to make a lot of these definitions also. And we then in turn will honor them. There was a question mark in my voice in saying that. I do think it is healthy to open up our parks. I do think it's healthy to open up our boat ramps. I think that people need to have that option to go outside, be outside. And I don't see a problem with us opening up our motels either. And, you know, a lot of people do stay in our motels that are traveling through the area also. So they are being used, and our hotel owners are ready for that. And we're not Manzanita. We don't have any of those 2,000 vacation rentals that I've told you about before. Everything that we do is on a much smaller scale. And we're a pass-through. People are moving through our community. Rebekah, you are muted. Oh, there.
Personally, I have some reservations regarding the hotels. I think, you know, how much we're going to see as far as an influx of visitors may depend on the actions of the other cities along the coast. If we are the only city opening up our hotels, then I think we'll see a lot more visitors. And I can tell you just from Jason's experience, there are quite a few people from out of state who are chomping at the bit to come out and fish. He has fielded so many phone calls from people trying to figure out ways around our restrictions so that they can come out and fish. So, you know, I like that we're talking about restricting boat ramps to weekdays, but I wonder about opening up hotels and what the point is if we are not encouraging people to come out. And I think they will fill those hotels, regardless of whether we're anybody's first choice. I think everybody's ready to get out.
You know, our county is tied to a health division that also includes Multnomah and Washington County. And before the restrictions are lifted on our area, they have to be lifted on the areas that have the most incidents of COVID. And they're also, unfortunately, today we learned that Clatsop County went from 6 active cases on Friday to 19 today. And, you know, that's alarming also. But in the state, the restrictions that apply to us are also applied to Multnomah and Washington and Clatsop County. So we are lumped into the metropolitan area as far as lifting the restrictions on our area. The other thing is the people who come to Memaloose, the only way they can come to Memaloose is if they have a county parking pass, which has to have been purchased already because they're not for sale right now. And true, 40% of those parking passes that were purchased at the credit union or at the courthouse were from people from out of town. But they cannot fish there unless they have one of those passes, and those docks will be closed on the weekends. And so that also will impact who comes here, when they come here, and how long they stay.
Yeah, I think it might be a good kind of middle ground. That's why I mentioned I am happy to hear that we're talking about weekdays instead of weekends, but
excuse me, but you know, people are coming down here and recreating. I know that we had to make a dash to the valley this weekend, and at Kings Mountain in the turnout, there were 16 cars. Now, you can't tell me that's social distancing and stay at home. Cars along the road, people going down to the river, they were there. So Rebekah, I'm sorry if I interrupted your train of thought there.
no, I just, I think we should proceed with caution. My only reservations were about the hotels, because that seems to be the only thing that is indicative of encouraging people to come out.
Presently, the Ashley Inn has also been approached and I believe contracted with the health department. So if someone needs a place to recuperate in quarantine or to be put in quarantine, that is where the county has contracted to put them.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone else have any input in this?
Are we making a decision about extending this for another month with the chamber's recommendations?
You
Or
will
something
make a,
different?
you'll make a decision on extending it under one of your next few lines or agenda items. I guess what I'm looking for is direction from you. If you want me to phase something in, let's just say you want me to wait on the boat launches until the county makes their move, which they probably will do in the next couple of days. You can say, okay, wait and see what happens there. And if it looks like the county's going to do it, then join in. So if you give me direction, I have the authority to make the changes. And then, like I say, when you have your next meeting in 2 weeks, you can ratify those and formalize them. But under the emergency order we're operating now, we can basically take these almost on a daily kind of position, but I need your feedback as to what you would like to do.
Ukiah, you had your hand up.
Yes, Justin had been raising his hand and I didn't know if you could see him.
I couldn't see him.
Okay, yeah, so he had raised his hand before Aaron, so I don't know what order you guys want to go in, but I'll let you decide that. And then Doug, I think it's Justin, Aaron, and then Doug in that order.
Okay, Justin, do you have something that you would add to this conversation?
Yeah, so I just want to add some clarity to the letter we submitted. This was not done in any way without a lot of thought put in from all sides. And we've kind of taken what Rebekah said from a lot of different areas. And the reason why we feel like lodging in the city of Tillamook, regardless if they fill up with fishermen or regardless of whether they fill up with people's family, we have a very limited amount of rooms in this city, to where the extent of somebody coming is not going to be a serious influx of visitors. You know, this is a local restriction. Lodging throughout the whole county, or the county is restricted. You know, the state is not in any way. You know, we looked for the weekday ramp and boat, and while I hear what Paul is saying about waiting for the county, the issue there is that the restrictions that are going to be done through the county are going to be different because they have the permits, and they have different methods of how they're going to allow people to go. The reason I didn't just ask for full access to parks, which would have included those boat launches, is in talking with Jim Orton about the access for weekdays that kind of coincided. Yes, the draft that they have, they're going to be opening up for like 2 days, 1 week, possibly 3 days, and monitoring. We don't patrol the marine waters that the Tillamook County Sheriff's Office does, Officer Griner and Kelly Ott. So, you know, we still respectfully ask to open up the lodging facilities in a way of, I think that kind of going to the point where we have the ability to do this well and to manage this and carefully and to monitor these 3 locations to where other places in the North Coast don't have. I mean, this is like the one time that it's advantageous for us to have not very much lodging, to where, you know, we don't have to open a floodgate, you know, so that's kind of where we're at. Kind of going back to what the hotels are ready for. I didn't mean it by the hotels are just ready to have visitors. I really meant it by that they are ready in the sense of they are hosting essential employees now. And so the protocols that they have are in line with the governor's order. The social distancing, the sanitation. Ashley Inn has thermometer checks at their facility. I did not ask if the other 2 had thermometer checks because they were the last one I talked to, or else I probably would have done that at the beginning. But they all have procedures in place to ensure visitor safety, community safety. One thing that kind of came up today is we would be really interested in putting a visitor satisfaction survey at those locations to ensure, to capture basically any feedback that a visitor had of maybe whether they had a great time, even though all the restaurants were closed and they didn't really get to go do much except for maybe go fishing. And that's kind of one of those things that really we don't have a lot that's open. And so the things that we do have open are going to be recreational and lend themselves to social distancing is our hope. And then, but also what we could capture by a short survey is whether or not our visitors are experiencing negative repercussions of locals not liking them here. Having that and closely monitoring those would allow us to then look at the community sentiment, what we have with our visitors. and really just make judgment calls moving forward. So that's, I guess, what I have to add.
Thank you. Aaron?
I'm in favor of it personally. And like I've said in some of my other emails earlier, we've talked about, and I think this is a good first step to opening us up, whether it's slowly or what, but it is a step and we need to look at that seriously.
Doug?
Well, my concern is, I'm not sure if we're looking at very slowly just opening up the boat ramps, and are we eventually going to look at expanding? Because I think the two areas that has the biggest impact on us being shut down is, number one is our restaurants. I think they've taken a beating, and if we extend this to July and we still have it in place to where they're not allowed to go in, we're going to lose them. And number two is the fact that on any given day, you can go to Safeway or Fred Meyer, and even though they're not supposed to be going in there, they are, and it's not being enforced. And if we open that up again, then all the local citizens are going to be faced with what we've been dealing with for the last few months, and that is a shortage of a lot of essential items, only much worse than what we're dealing with now. And so that concerns me, to where these fishermen, they do come into town, but that's the two main places that where they spend their money. They spend them at restaurants, or they'll spend them at Safeway and Fred Meyer. And I'm not sure that a lot of people are real happy about that. And I'm not sure what the thought is as far as how is Tillamook going to reopen. Are we just going to start with maybe just doing the boat ramps, or are we going to expand it, do that for a period of time, and then see how that goes, and then maybe extend it a little further?
Well, there are some very stringent restrictions concerning the ability to test and care for people that the governor is forwarding. And you know, we do have a shortage of tests in this county. Initially, the county health department asked for 5,000 tests so that we could have the potential, and they got 45. They recently, today, got another 200. They have the ability right now to test about 500 people. Well, 500 people is about the minimum that they need to be able to test all of the people that are in the care facilities and the workers in the county. So we're still dreadfully short of being able to adequately test the people that live here. Another thing that you should know is that there are stores in the state of Oregon that are running out of meat and are rationing the amount of meat that you can purchase. Safeway, on Sunday, you could only buy 2 packages of meat. And I know I have heard from people in the valley. I was talking to a second homeowner here on the coast who lives in Lake Oswego, and told me that there was a Costco that was out of meat. And so, you know, that's the kind of shortage that we will maybe have to look at. Ukiah has his hand up first, please.
Pardon?
You're muted. You're muted.
You'd figure of all people, I should know what I'm doing. Just carried away with myself. So Justin had his hand up, and then Aaron had his hand up after that again.
Okay. Aaron?
I was just gonna add to what we had, what Doug was saying. I think it is really hard on these small businesses, restaurants, all of them. And maybe we could do what Jorge had suggested and do the W word of a workshop. And maybe we should get together and start seeing what we as a city can do with these businesses and how we can work it out together. Because every case is different. We're not Multnomah County, we're not Portland, and it is different here. And I think that's a talk we should have.
The other thing that we need to take into consideration is the social distancing rules. And I have talked to Justin about this just recently, about the 6 feet that has to be between people. Do our restaurants have the capacity to be able to provide that for people? Another question. And now, Doug, you had your hand up, and I can't see Jorge, so did you say Jorge also?
I said Justin
Okay.
had his hand up as well.
Doug?
Yeah, well, I think Aaron has a good idea. My concern is, I'm all for, a question I have, Suzanne, is I follow the statistics daily. And on the Oregon coast, the entire Oregon coast, we've had 0 deaths, according to the report that I get with the COVID. And Tillamook has maintained at 6 cases for several days straight. Now all of a sudden, Tillamook County has jumped from 6 to, what did you say? 19?
No, I said Clatsop County has.
That's it. Okay, so my question is that a faulty system in how they're testing, or what could possibly cause it to jump that much in 1 day's time?
I called Bornstein's today because that is the source of it. And I wanted to talk to Mr. Bornstein about this because he and I are acquaintances, but they're not taking any calls. But all of those cases came from Bornstein's.
Well, I'm kind of wondering if we're not facing the same problem.
The other thing is, I also talked with Mr. Fick from up there, who also has a fish processing plant, who is also very concerned because the employees right now that are working in the fish processing plants are all living in very close proximity, whether they work at Bornstein's or whether they work at Fick or whether they work somewhere else. And so there is the possibility that is, that's the reason they're all living so close together, and that is what has infected them.
Because that's quite a jump just for 1 day.
Well, it's very alarming. And what are the possibilities of something like that happening here? We have manufacturers here, that people that work in close proximity. We have Tillamook Smoker. We have Werner Meat. All of those processing type plants also that need to be considered.
We got some tough.
We don't have the ability we don't have the ability right now to totally do any contact work on people. Those people have not been hired yet that are going to be able to trace someone's contact for 24 hours prior to their being diagnosed, or 36 or 48 hours so that you can see who has been impacted by their diagnosis.
Thank you.
Rebekah?
Don't forget Justin. He's
Oh, I will
waving again.
Yeah, I was just wanting to point out that Justin has waited for quite a while.
I can't see it, so out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to reiterate, I kind of want to touch on a couple things. One is the things in here that we wrote on, this discussion is kind of taken down, and a workshop is likely a good thing for kind of the next phase, due to the fact that the things that we wrote in here are what is under local restriction right now. So these are the things that you have direct control over to kind of lead our way back into the step into how to kind of manage moving forward. The governor her phasing is not rolling out till either the end of this week or next week, most likely. And then it's up to the county commission, actually, not cities, to determine whether we're able to enter phasing. I've been in the thick of this for about a week and a half. I still feel confident that the items in this letter are are good solutions to a first step. Going to the restaurant component, yes, there are some things that are in low supply. I did, just knowing that there's a lot of pieces, I have talked with the grocery stores also. They're prepared for an increase if they're notified. And that was what we ran into during that insane spring break weekend that I think we're finally catching back up on. If you notice, if you go to the store, a lot of the store shelves, there's still quite a bit. I mean, obviously there's things that are in shortage, but there's a lot more than there was. And our grocery stores can handle an influx of people. Again, we're talking no more than, if we maxed out all our rooms, we're talking about, I think, under 150, which don't hold what a vacation home holds. You know, they hold a couple people, maybe a family of 4, but they're not holding 6 to 10 to 20 people per location. They don't have kitchens in them. I don't know if we have any kitchenettes in our hotels that I'm aware of. I think there's a few in a couple, but they're limited. And so to think that we're going to have people shopping similar to what we experienced with vacation homes, or camping even, it's just not a likely scenario. That's all been, I mean, I just want you to be aware that we've taken a lot of this into consideration to make the most educated ask that we could. So.
Okay, Paul, how would you suggest we go forward?
Well, I've heard, looks like Jorge has a question. I don't know if you can see him, but.
I can't.
Okay, why don't you take
But I saw Rebekah also had her hand up.
I was just going to point out that Jorge had his hand up because you said you couldn't see him.
I don't see him.
So anyway, I just wanted to say that I'm also in favor of phasing in and reopening as well. I'm in favor of all of the suggestions in the chamber's letter. I would say the only thing that I would want different than what the county is doing is with regards to the boat ramp. I think the county is saying they're going to do like 2 or 3 days a week, and then they also had like a limit of 2 occupants per boat. I would rather just see Monday through Friday and, you know, not have the restriction on the people personally. But other than that, I'm definitely in favor of at least taking our first step of you know, phasing back in.
Thank you, Jorge. Okay, John, is he next? John?
I don't know. I had my hand up. I think I'm next.
I'm not seeing everybody, so go ahead.
Well, I can support the things the chamber wants and the various ideas. But you all got to remember, we're taking a hell of a risk for our population. I mean, it says now in all the various symptom lists, if you're old and fat and a diabetic, you're going to get it. And that's me. And I don't want everybody coming around and giving it to me from somewhere else. So I don't know what to do that's right, but it's very scary. And we have to remember that this is responsibility that might lead to people's lives or deaths. That is all.
Rebekah?
Kind of building on what John said, Justin mentioned that the hotels can house about 150 people, but they're saying that each person with this virus on average can infect 3 to 6 other people, and before you know it, 150 can spread to quite a few people. I do really like the idea that we can, I don't like this terminology, but we can be kind of the sacrificial lamb to test this out and see how it works for other communities on the coast. I'm just wondering if we've got a plan for how we would measure and communicate the results of what we're seeing if we do choose to open hotels. Who's going to communicate what's happening to whom, and how are we going to communicate that to other communities?
Doug?
I think John makes a very good point, and I think Aaron makes a very good point. And I think we're in a position where we're playing with fire, where we could really screw up and take this town down if we do not do this. in a correct manner. And we have a state out there right now that is going to prove to be our guinea pig, and that's Georgia. They've opened it wide open, and I think we need to pay real close attention to some of these communities. Florida's another one. They opened up the beaches. California opened up the beaches. They had to turn right around and close them because it exploded. And my wife is in the same boat that John is. She's diabetic. She has lung issues, and I'd hate like hell to open everything up and lose her because we were anxious. But then on the other hand, I'm empathetic for that restaurant owner that is possibly going to lose their business. And so I think it warrants us city councilors sitting down in a workshop and intellectually and professionally coming up with a system that does not destroy Tillamook. And we do it in a manner such that we walk before we run and be very selective, and we monitor it very closely as to what the effects are, and don't put ourselves in a situation where we're jeopardizing John's life or my wife's life or anybody else out there that's suffering with some of the same issues. We're in waters that we've never been before, and it's something that we just don't dive in head first. And that's the last of my preaching.
Brian, I haven't heard anything from you. Do you have an opinion on this?
I do.
I'm asking for it.
I am inclined to agree with the chamber's request.
Anything else?
No.
Brian, could you elaborate on that a bit, please?
No, I think it's time that we start opening.
I think
No.
that these are first
Within the
good
parameters that have been set legally. But like the others have said, I think that we are in a position where we can open in a way that other communities can't. And I think we should explore that, and not for the benefit of people outside our community, but within our community. This is more for our community than anything.
Remember that the boat launches and those other areas will be closed on the weekends. So, that's when people will be coming down to this area predominantly. But I think that we need to open our boat launch up for our citizens. Actually, I'm kind of getting tired of the emails that say when. How come so-and-so does this and so-and-so does that and we can't do this? And I understand it. I understand their frustration. I also know that you all got another email that I forwarded to you that someone had sent to me today about taking all of this into consideration and thinking about people's health and not going quickly. And I think that the chamber's requests do that. I think they move slowly enough. They address our citizens getting out there. And yes, we need to monitor it. Rebekah?
Just wanted to let you know Jorge had his hand up.
Oh, Jorge, I am so sorry I can't see you.
That's all right. That's all right. I just wanted to say that I definitely appreciate and concur with everybody and have the same concerns and acknowledge that there is risk and we are definitely taking risks, but we should maintain some perspective and the context and remember that from the beginning of this, the point was to flatten the curve is what we were told, not to keep everything closed until there were no cases, period. So at some point we are going to have to start phasing back in, and so we are going to have to take some risk, but we just have to be thoughtful about it, and maybe getting together and having a workshop and inviting the business leaders would be a good next step.
I think it would be helpful if we were to take these first steps and then when the governor releases whatever at the end of the week, and the county has analyzed all of their options, that we have that workshop after that as to how we're going to do this. I don't know what the rest of you think about that. Aaron?
I don't want everyone to get upset with me all at the same time, but I think that if we're going to do this by a weekly, maybe we should set on having just another meeting next Monday. We should just plan it every week and we can stay on top of it. I'm willing. So I think it might be a good idea. That way we can take all the new information and do it week by week instead of putting it off, because every week matters for businesses and people that are not working and have no income.
And every week matters for those people who have health concerns also. And we need to see, I keep apprised of, with the county leadership team as to how many people are being tested on a regular basis at our hospital. And we need to look at that too.
Oh, I agree. I'm not saying we do not. I'm saying that we need to take it a step at a time, but we also need to sit and look at a lot of these measures. When this was all started and put in place, this was the end all be all, everyone's going to die virus that is not lived up to what it says. And the numbers prove that. So we need to adapt to what it is now, not live at how it was or thought to be. That's what I'm saying. Adapt to what it is.
Rebekah?
Well, I started just raising my hand to tell you that Justin keeps indicating he'd like to say something. Just regarding what Aaron said, I think this is a pretty serious virus. The CDC estimates that we lose 12 to 61,000 Americans to the flu each year. And we're at 67 or above in just 2 months. And that's with shutting the entire country down. So, the not very serious consequences that are actually pretty serious if you compare them with the flu numbers wise in 2 months versus a year. Once things start to open up, I think you might see the very scary pandemic that everybody's been talking about. So I definitely think we need to retain that element of caution. Things are not going to go back to normal anytime soon. But anyway, again, Justin has had his hand up a few times, and I just wanted to point that out.
Justin?
Yeah, I want to echo some sentiment around how serious of a decision it is. And, obviously being the one to make this request, I feel it. I feel that weight. We get it. I'm in this conversation every single day with both sides, it seems, from state and federal government to the regular citizen to the business owner. And the thought I had was, when is there a good time? The idea here is, and I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm also committed to staying on this, whether it's a weekly meeting. I'd probably suggest a midweek meeting so that we could talk with health professionals on after a weekend to kind of get a good understanding of if there's anything that transpired. We don't plan on just sending a letter here and then letting it be a free for all and on to the next project. I feel pretty responsible as an organization here to commit to being active at taking a look at this. I'm not a medical professional, but I know how to talk to them. I mean, we can reach out. I know we can talk to the businesses. Like I said, looking at visitor feedback to ensure that we're not seeing people's cars getting egged or cussed out in the store, which has happened. We don't want any of that. I mean, that essentially, those people will remember that. So we don't want to just let situations like that just continue on. We don't want to just disregard if there's some kind of positive cases that can be tracked back to, visitors that we opened up to that stayed in a hotel. I mean, you just don't want to be responsible for that. So anyway, I just want to reiterate that we're with you in helping stay on top of this best we can in the city.
Okay, so let's decide on what kind of action we're going to take. Are we going to, yes, I know, Doug, but let me talk. Are we going to go with the recommendations of the chamber? Number one. Are we going to go with a modified chamber recommendation? Number two, are we going to commit to having a workshop? And I don't think that it would probably be within the next week and a half, something like that. Put your ideas forward as to what you want.
I think I've heard fairly clearly that two of the chamber's points we have consensus on, and that is the parks and the boat launches. I haven't heard any huge arguments against those, so I could easily draft up an emergency order along the lines of those 2 points tomorrow and issue it. So that's not a big deal. I think the real issue revolves around the motels and that question. That we've gone back and forth on that. So that one might take a motion or something a little bit more clear, and then I can work off of that to develop an executive or an emergency order.
Okay, is there someone who wants to put forward a motion concerning some sort of action surrounding motels?
Well, I'll make a motion that we go with the advisement of the chamber as written.
I would second.
Okay, that means full availability of lodging within the city of Tillamook in a controlled environment, a manner which lends itself to a manageable influx of overnight visitations. Are you saying that this will be 5 days a week, or are you going to say this includes weekends?
I think a motion was for the chambers, which said weekday.
It says,
Mayor,
yes,
the chamber's motion for weekdays was the boat launch. From what I understand, it was 7 days a week for the hotels, motels.
Oh,
Yeah.
my mistake. I misheard you then. Okay.
Question.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, was that two? Would you raise your hand if you said aye, please?
You cannot see Jorge.
Jorge
He's got his hand up.
Aye.
Jorge
Four.
has his hand up.
Yeah, that's 4.
We have 4 votes aye.
Can I get a roll call on that real fast, please?
Well, my hand's up too.
Yeah, you're one of the 4, John.
Okay.
Aaron, John,
Aye.
Brian, and Jorge.
Thank you, Mayor.
And those opposed.
Aye.
Doug?
Rebekah, and your vote?
Am I allowed to abstain?
Yes, you are. 1 no and 1 abstention. No way that word would come
Okay.
out. Sorry.
I'll draft up something in an emergency declaration tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. So have we covered this topic fully enough? The only thing we didn't address was the possibility of a workshop. And I would suggest that we're going to have new developments. We're going to be needing to do some research on health issues, governor's orders. What if we say we'll have a workshop on this just with the council at our next council meeting? So that, be thinking about this, put some serious thought into it, check around, get your facts, and we will also, that'll give us time, and it's only 2 weeks to develop what your internal plan that you can bring to the council, so that we have, and we'll also have other options from the governor and the county and CDC and whoever else, and we'll also be able to look at the numbers. Okay? Is that all right with you? I need some head shaking or some yes or some no or something to change
I
it.
agree.
Sounds good.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay,
Suzanne,
yes, Doug?
the only reason I voted no was because of the statistic you threw out there today. I would like to have an answer as to why Clatsop County went from 6 to 19. There
I
is,
will find that out.
there is an issue there, and if Tillamook has got the same issue, that definitely, I think we need to refigure that if we got that many people wandering around that's not being accounted for, we've got a bigger problem than what we realize.
And we will find that out, Doug. Aaron, did you have another? Okay. So we've got it. Next meeting, workshop. We'll have all of the information. We'll be able to have a really intelligent conversation on how we're going to go forward. Okay, next we've got on our agenda the National Day of Prayer Parade request.
Okay, you've got in your packet a request, and Linda Hanratty is joining us. She has had some changes. I think it's no longer going to be a parade, but it's now going to be an auto tour. So I think it would be best for her to kind of elaborate on the changes since your packet went out, and let you know what this is. Generally, we require some sort of a permit on our streets if you're closing a street, impacting traffic, or drawing crowds. So that's generally where we take a look at it and say, is this a good thing? So Linda, why don't you tell us a little bit about what changed? She's muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you now.
Okay. I didn't have, I mean, everything has been changing week to week to week. We just didn't, we've had a hard time getting it organized. And our first thought was a parade. We have changed that to a self-guided tour, auto tour with people in their cars. We'll have one person handing out the prayer guide. They'll be, and we'll be maintaining social distancing, and we've got a basic route, but we've asked everybody to follow all the street signs and traffic lights. And, but what we really want to do is be a blessing to the city, to boost morale, to bring some encouragement, and to bring prayer to our community, to bring healing to our community.
Okay, so
In terms of your routing, what is it? How has that changed?
Well, the routing, I've got a basic direction that goes down 2nd Street around the hospital, and then it comes back 3rd Street, and it goes down Stillwell toward Liberty School. We're going to try to avoid the traffic lights as much as possible, because there is no way to, I mean, and I don't even know how many people will show up. We might have 10 cars, we might have 100. I doubt it. I just don't know, but it's going to be self-guided. People will have it, and they'll have to follow their own pathway, so to speak. And they do not have to follow our path, the one that somebody else might follow. And they'll be completely socially distanced, except for people that come in their own car.
Council, Council, do you have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Yes, John?
So as the cars follow your route, will they be stopping for some prayer at different spots or anything like that?
We've asked them to stay in their car and kind of to do a drive-by, like when we get to the hospital. We've gotten permission to go down around in a circle around through the hospital parking lot. And there will be prayer going out as we go by, and we'll go very slowly.
Thank you.
Yeah. And for our business district. So,
And for our government area also.
yes, we won't forget, we're going to be going up by we'll go by the fire department. We're going to go by our first responders, our police department, our city hall, our county courthouse. And there is going to be blessing, blessing, blessing on all of you.
Thank you. So is a parade or any kind of permit required, Paul?
Well, like I said, they're not closing any streets. They're not trying to draw a crowd along the streets. And it doesn't sound like they're going to impact traffic. So in other words, when you come to a stop sign, every one of the vehicles will stop.
That's
and
right.
You can't block any roads.
Right.
Okay.
We know that.
So it probably does not constitute
I
a
didn't
parade.
think so. So does it doesn't require council approval either, right? It can just happen.
Right, as long as they're not, like I say, changing our traffic patterns, that's the key.
Okay.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Oh, go ahead, Linda.
We have 10 cities that are going to have drive-by prayer groups throughout our
I think
county.
that's
And a
Do it.
lot of it's going to be praying protection, especially as we begin to reopen, protection and healing for those that have, we don't have that many that have been sick, but we don't want anybody to get sick. So we're going to pray God's absolute best into our community. So
Thank you.
thank you.
And this will start at noon on Thursday, correct?
No, it'll start at 10 o'clock.
10
And,
o'clock.
and then we have a 12 o'clock live stream that will be at the courthouse. But that we are not inviting the public to that. We're going to just live stream it and it'll be online on Facebook.
Okay, that sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. It's, you know, they've always gathered in front of the courthouse on this special day, and to not be able to do it, you have to come up with some unique and different ways to accomplish the same thing. So I give them a lot of credit for that. Okay, pending business. The request to approve the Port of Tillamook Bay Trail easement invoice and agreement.
Okay, you've got the port's response in a letter from Michele Bradley, who's also joining us. And essentially they came back with a one-time easement fee, along with some permit and recording fees. So it's a little bit over our counter offer of 7,500, but not by much. They have subsequently also then provided a trail easement document that I reviewed with Michele, and has the exhibits. I think everything's accurate now to proceed. So this was a follow-up on your action on the water rates. And I think at least staff recommendation would be to accept this counter proposal and agreement. But I don't know if Michele wanted to add anything.
Michele, is there anything you wish to add?
Nope. The only reason it comes in a little higher is that the rate was actually, the fee is actually lower, but then if you add in the additional fees for the recording and things like that, that bumped it up a little
Right.
more. So, yeah. But I'd be happy to take any questions, but also I need to take a left turn, and Councilor Reynolds, I would be remiss if my daughter didn't panic when she realized it was your birthday and she didn't reach out. So
Oh my
I've
gosh.
done my motherly duty to wish you a late birthday from my daughter.
Thank you.
So sorry
We
about
did-
the inappropriateness of my timing on this, but I would be lynched if I didn't.
Are we singing?
Yeah. we should
No,
say-
please don't.
The echoes
No.
are bad.
They are, but thank your daughter, and I miss
I
her.
will do that. I already Snapchatted her that we were on the call together, so yes. But no, there's really no more, however, I feel like we're kind of getting to the point we can almost check this off our list. So happy to bring it to an end.
I agree. Aaron, you have your hand up?
I might be reading this wrong, but what is the total? I cannot see or find the exact total.
Okay, the easement fee is $7,437.60, and then you have a permit fee of $300 on top of that. So you are at $77,307.60. And then there is some miscellaneous recording fees that we'll get when we take it over to the county.
Okay, because I just wasn't sure where it was highlighted, where it says property use fee, the commercial industrial utility per square foot at $1, but why was that one highlighted? I'm just, and annual.
Yeah, that probably made it a little more confusing. That was just that's our regular fee sheet and we had to deviate it from it a bit. Just because the 2011 version is different than the 2018 version. The fees are different on different ones. So we use the current one for the fees and the other one for that. So that's how the math worked.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, if you pay attention to the dates on them, you'll see that things changed over time. So,
Been 9 years, 8 years.
I will entertain a motion concerning this.
I move that we approve the easement and water rate agreement between the Port of Tillamook Bay and the city of Tillamook.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Just to clarify, you've already approved the water rate.
I was just going to say the water rate has been approved, but this is
Okay, fine.
for the trail easement. Okay.
That's what I meant. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I knew you meant that for sure. Okay, so we have a motion concerning the Tillamook Bay Trail easement invoice and agreement.
Second,
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other further discussion concerning?
Question.
Question is called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously.
Right, thank you.
Okay,
Thank
Mayor, we also lost Doug.
I
Oh,
know.
Doug is not on.
is there?
Doug is not on anymore.
Ukiah, did he sign off?
Harry's back. Wait, we might want to redo that vote. He got knocked off.
it
Yeah,
was
he
the
wasn't,
birthday wishes.
he was not present for the vote at the time it was recorded.
Okay. Doug, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, we just voted on the approval of the Port of Tillamook Bay Trail easement invoice and agreement. And you did not have an opportunity to vote. Would you vote in favor of that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And that is a unanimous vote in favor of that. Thank you for being here, Michele.
All right, you bet. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Signing off.
Now we have the ratification to extend the deadline of the emergency declaration and the
Okay.
waiver of utility payment card processing fee.
Right. These are the two actions that I've taken since your last meeting. One was to extend the emergency declaration to the end of May, and the other was to waive our fees that we were charging for credit card transactions, because essentially people don't have a choice but to do that. So it was a sort of an onerous charge to add on. So I just waived it for the month and until we are done with our emergency.
Do you want to entertain a motion? Doug, are you there?
Yes.
Okay, I will, Rebekah?
Curious about that fee. because there's no other bill that I have that charges me $2.30 to pay it online. Why is it so high?
It's basically what we get charged from the credit companies to do this. And Ukiah, is there any explanation that you want to add on how that transaction fee occurs?
From my understanding, the fee occurs as a result of the infrastructure and any appropriate, any requisite electronic processing and those sort of costs that we would incur to pay above and beyond for the ability to accept that sort of payment. If someone pays us in person or via check in the mail, there is no requisite processing fee that we're paying. However, there are processing fees associated with electronic payments, and the $2.60 justifiably through Spring or through the company that we use, that's their justification to create that fee, and that's why it's being passed along to the customer, is to avoid any extraneous burden on our revenue.
I had an email from a gentleman who was quite upset that he couldn't get in here, and then he was being charged for not being able to get in here. And so that's why this decision was made.
Yeah, I'm in total favor of suspending that fee. I've just never understood why it was so high. I mean, even, you know, when I pay my garbage bill online, there's no fee to pay it. You know, I might argue that we incur a cost when someone has to, you know, process a check, but you know, I don't know if there are other options for payment processing. I have never had a bill that charged me $2 to pay it online. It seems so high.
Actually, CenturyLink charges you $3 and some cents to pay your bill.
Yeah, I've never gone with CenturyLink. I probably have the same number of bills as everybody else. It's really unusual.
And you know, Rebekah, a lot of people have just built that fee into their payment structure. And so you don't even realize that you're paying it.
So that's fair.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion concerning this.
I move we approve our emergency manager's 2 actions that he described here tonight.
Okay, we have a motion concerning approval of the emergency declaration and the waiver of utility payment card processing fees. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
The question is called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? I want to say, Jorge, it's nice to see you. I'm finally seeing you. Okay, now we need the request to approve the sewer block grant project contract with advanced excavation.
Yeah, this was probably the largest portion of your packet, but it's fairly simple. You've already taken the action to award the contract to Advanced Excavation, but because it's a block grant, they also wanted you to vote on the contract itself, which has been thoroughly reviewed by our attorney, and everything is in place. So staff is recommending approval so that we can get this operation underway. This is for this, by the way, this is for our sewer $2.5 million grant.
I will entertain, okay, Aaron, a question before you make your motion?
So basically you just want a motion to adopt approve the contract between us and Advanced Excavation, correct?
That is correct. You already awarded the bid to them.
Okay, that's kind of the way I saw it. So I will make a motion, we approve the contract between the city of Tillamook and Advanced Excavation.
Second.
Well, that was, okay. I don't know who got there first.
Rebekah did.
Rebekah did?
I don't know. I think it was Jorge, but you couldn't see him.
No, yeah,
I can see him now.
I didn't second.
Okay, we have a motion concerning the approval of the sewer block grant project contract with Advanced Excavation. Any further discussion?
Question.
The question is called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, next we need to talk about revising the budget calendar.
Okay, essentially there was an email in there that described what I'm proposing, and that is to cancel the May 14th Budget Committee and keep only the May 21st one, largely because there's a number of unknowns. I was hoping, as I mentioned in my email, that we'd have more direction from the governor, but we also are just finishing up our April financials. I'm meeting with staff on Wednesday to go over our draft budget with that information in hand. And then we can get something out by the end of the week in terms of publication of the budget. However, that is not enough time in lead of May 14th. So I'm recommending that we only have the May 21st to buy us that little extra week of time. And I will be pushing the budget committee to do it in one night. Hopefully, we can get through this rather quickly. I think one of the things that we're going to emphasize for the budget committee this year is that because it's such a strange year, there is no doubt, but that we'll be having several supplemental budgets after we adopt the original budget because there's going to be changes. But we'll give it our best shot to have an accurate document to begin with. And I think by doing this little change in the budget calendar, we can be much more accurate than if we try to rush it.
Aaron.
I'm good with that. Personally, my only question is, are we doing this through Zoom?
Oh, yes, Ukiah and I have been talking about it. Budget committee is going to be extraordinarily difficult on Zoom because you're going to have a lot of little people. You're going to have 14 little pictures. And we also somehow have to figure out how to see the budget at the same time. And then there's staff, there's questions that'll come up. And under the governor's public meeting rules, we can't do hearings like we did with these other ones tonight, where you take written testimony only. You also have to have a way for the public to join your Zoom and give testimony. So it's a bit of a bugaboo. Our genius behind the Zoom camera, Ukiah, is going to work it all out.
Ukiah?
Well, first off, thank you for those very kind and optimistic words, Paul. I have been in consultation with the Oregon Association of Municipal Recorders. Other municipalities are working out how best to approach the public meeting, the budget meeting, excuse me, rules as outlined in the governor's executive orders. There are some good options. Some of them involve webinars through Zoom, which will be a cost that we would have to incur, but it's minimal. Also, don't forget that there is the option for some of the counselors to meet in the chambers under the governor's executive order of 10 or less people being in a location at once. I'm not recommending that. I'm saying it is an option, however, available if Paul or the mayor do suggest that. So that's maybe defraying some of the confusion that we have in our discourse. But there are options, and we will establish what works best with input from Mayor, Paul, and yourselves.
Okay. So do I have a motion on the budget calendar?
I move that we approve the revision to the 2020-21 budget calendar.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the revised 2021 budget calendar. Any discussion?
Question.
The question is called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, I think I heard everybody's vote. Doug, did I hear your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. So that is unanimous. Okay, we have a couple of items under the legislative part of our agenda. And the first one is Resolution 1815, adopting the supplemental budget that we were presented with. And appropriating the funds within the general fund, street fund, water fund, sewer fund, and TRT fund.
I move we adopt resolution number 1815.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded to give approval to resolution 1815. Is there any discussion?
question.
The question is called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Doug. Opposed?
Loyal.
Okay, no one was opposed, correct? Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. Next, we have resolution 1814. A joint resolution of the City Council and the Local Contract Review Board opting out of the Attorney General's model public contracting rules and amending public contracting rules for the City of Tillamook and repealing Resolution 1691.
Okay, this was your other hearing, and so there was no comments, and it was essentially those three major changes that we talked about.
I will entertain a motion concerning this resolution.
I will move that we adopt resolution 1814.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adopt resolution 1814. Is there any further discussion?
Question.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that also passes unanimously. Next, we'll go to our reports, and we have the police chief's report. You have that written report in your packet. Is there anyone who has any questions on Terry's report?
I'd just point out that Officer Sadler is on board and has been sworn in. He's joined us. I would also comment that we're working with the county and trying to get the justice court open to clean up a lot of those outstanding issues that we've got in terms of parking tickets and some of our enforcement actions around town. So that right now, I think Commissioner Bartline is going to be supportive of us trying to get that that roadblock or that log jam out of the way.
Aaron, you have your hand up.
I do. I think that part of my email with the pictures of that was taken a little wrong or out of context, because that was not strictly a thing about City PD not doing anything. I think people need to realize that I have received multiple messages and phone calls at my shop. And when I get a message at my shop, which was like at least 3 on this one matter, and I call them back and I get the response of, oh, thank you for calling me. I get a response finally. So I don't know where it's lacking. I don't know where people are calling when they say they're calling City Hall or where, and not getting any response back from anyone. That is part of this. So I don't know where the drop in this is, but you know, that's hard for me getting those phone calls and messages. So like, you know, some of it might be just frustration totally, but when they're saying they aren't getting responses from anyone, so that's not just City PD. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified. That's not what that complaint or not complaint, but email was about.
Okay.
Rebekah?
I wasn't going to address your email, but something I would like to encourage all of us to consider is that if you're receiving a lot of phone calls from people who are in my ward, you might encourage them to reach out to me, let them know that they have a counselor representing their ward, because we all kind of know our neighborhoods and we know, you know, some of the people in them. I'm familiar with the location that was the subject of that email. So I might have been able to address some of their concerns because I have some background knowledge in that area. And, you know, just based on who I'm married to, I think, you know, I understand that your email wasn't necessarily accusatory. I just know that there is a lot of stress happening in law enforcement right now. And there are a lot of areas where their hands are tied, you know, where they can't really do what they would like to do. And trying to decide what I can say publicly, but I think maybe some of that frustration spilled over, and he might have preferred to be contacted, privately and asked, what's your take on this? I know that Jason has taken a lot of calls where, people have been cooped up for a really long time, and he has to tell them the same things over and over and over again, and they just don't seem to be processing it. So I don't know what the situation was with the people who reached out to you. I would love to hear from them. I've been in this seat for over a year, and I have yet to hear from a single constituent on any issue. So let them know that I'm here.
I'll tell you what.
FYI, I am that guy. Everyone can get a hold of me. Everybody knows how to get a hold of me. They either call me or they show up at my store. And it happens on every occasion from every ward about everything. And I
they
do have
also are on my doorstep.
all the time. Literally, I get contacted daily. So it's just frustrating when you're in this position that I'm in and this is happening. So there's obviously a lack of communication somewhere. And like I said, this isn't directed at PD because we're all frustrated. Everyone is working above and beyond what their normal job duties are. And they are restricted as what people can and can't do in every profession. But it has to be dealt with. And so that's the problem. It can't be out. And I will direct them to you. You give me a phone number or an email and I will send them directly to you in the future. So do you want your just your city email works? Then that is just fine. I don't give people cell phone numbers out. So
city email routes to my personal email. And if you still have the directory, I believe it's in there.
Oh, I have it. I can send it if that's, I just wanted to know which route you wanted.
City email is fine. But yeah, I think tensions are high and maybe that was a part of it, but I'm sorry that blew up.
It is what it is.
Okay, let's go on. Public Works Director, you have information from Tim. You have photographs on things that they are doing. So you see them down in the holes, fixing things.
You also received a late arrival of some photos, I believe, on the new pavement patcher that has come on board. So they're getting that out there. They're starting to use it and they're pleased with the results so far.
Yes, they are. Aaron, you have your hand up again?
I do. Did I hear properly that we have lost a couple people?
Public Works
at Public Works? Yes.
Yes.
I did read that. Okay.
One resigned and moved to Idaho. So
that's a long ways to go.
It is.
Okay, any other questions on Public Works? Paul, your report, please.
Okay, as Jamie mentioned, we actually, amazingly enough, in these difficult times, have seen some good things happening financially. The Holden Creek Apartments down on 12th are proceeding. And so we saw a lot of that revenue come in on the permit side. They are anxious to get underway, as is Grocery Outlet, who also went through their total permit process now. Those large projects are underway. The Grocery Outlet is still hitting some little legal snags, but they're still surcharging the ground and hoping to proceed as quickly as possible. So some of those types of things are good news. We've also had some good news in terms of some past dues on our transient room tax. So that's helped backfill in that area as well, with some of the folks who were delinquent being almost caught up within 1 month. So that's an excellent thing. So there is some progress going on in there. We are fortunate that we are not heavily dependent on sales tax as many governments are. And so I think in terms of our overall financial stability, we're doing quite well. The City Hall project, the contractor is done, but there's still a little punch list out there. that of a few remaining items that have to be taken care of before we release final payment to them. Jamie in her supplemental budget talked about some of the additional costs that we had to do. Those are not going to the contractor. Those were costs that Public Works did after we had moved in with some additional items. So the budget on the contractor is still within bounds of where we left off last. We are proceeding with the undergrounding on 2nd Street as well. So you'll start to see progress there. I am just going through the punch list of the projects that have to be completed in the next 2 months, i.e. this fiscal year. At my manager's meeting on a Wednesday, we should go through that final punch list, and I'll try to give you a little report as to what is going to be our public works projects that we're going to accomplish here before the end of June. So that's going to inform our budget process, because we'll know what we have done and what we have to carry over as well. And so that whole experience is like I say, going to be fleshed out this week. So that'll help us put out a budget. I think that will be, as I said, fairly accurate. We're going to be, as you know, dealing with our emergency situations here over the next week as it relates to the state. But there's also going to be some discussions that you're going to want to be having probably at your next meeting related to the June Dairy Parade, related to the movie nights this summer. All of those sorts of things are some subsequent actions that I think you're going to want to discuss. Justin will be joining us at the next meeting to present some of his progress and his concepts for what he wants to do with the chamber overall. So that will be something that you'll want to bear in mind now as we look at our rollout and our recovery process, is what we can and can't do this summer. And there may be a number of things that we just simply put a pause on. So that's something for you to think about in the meantime. I probably, with the workload we've got on public works, we did have a small city allotment grant for $100,000 that we were going to be working down by the old Robies by the and on 12th that we're probably going to delay a year. So if you don't see action there, that's probably going to be held for 1 year. That is it's fine. We have until we have a 2-year time limit to get that grant accomplished, so that won't cause any problems there. But there are a few. We're juggling all of our various projects right now just to make sure that we can reasonably accomplish everything and still deal with the number of issues that have come up because of the COVID. I guess the last thing I'd point out is it's under your correspondence, but you've already received something from Long Prairie, who has heard about the rate reduction that we did with the port and is asking for something similar. As you know, we premise what we did with the port on a commercial basis. What we'll be probably proposing, and staff is going to be working on this over the next week, is something with Long Prairie that deals more with an IGA agreement rather than a formal rate reduction. And that is something that we had already had an initiative underway in the past on consolidation of water districts around us. And Long Prairie has expressed an interest in consolidating somewhere in the future. So we will probably approach it a little differently than we did with the port. But anyway, I figured this is the sort of thing that would happen once you do one rate reduction, then everyone's going to want to jump on the bandwagon. So Aaron.
Are we going to have a meeting about this, or a workshop, or are we going to just do like a Zoom meeting
for the Long Prairie stuff?
For all of that, yes.
Oh, the Long Prairie stuff, I don't know yet. I want to work up a staff proposal first And then I'll bring that to you, whether we need a workshop on it or not. It's up to, well, I saw Justin just reappeared here. I don't know if you want to do a workshop on the other components of this. Am I?
I thought we talked about it last time at Finance Committee. Wasn't that where we talked about it the most, if memory serves?
We did, but not as it
Not
relates
that
to
part.
Jason. Yeah,
Not that part of it.
yeah.
When we were talking about it, we were talking about assuming that Long Prairie Water District.
I just couldn't remember what meeting we were in when we were discussing it. So I didn't know if we needed
Yeah,
to
this
be
is a
in
different
that one.
situation. This
Yes.
is asking for a rate reduction
Got it.
rather than being assumed into the city water plan.
Right. But yes, we can do it through Finance Committee if that's something you'd like to do. Oh, by the way, I didn't really highlight that, but by carrying our emergency order forward, there are no further committee meetings this month other than Budget Committee. So we don't have a Finance Committee set up.
Okay, any questions for Paul? Yes, Brian?
Paul, then on that, the DEQ issue, is it moving forward as it pertains to grocery outlet?
Yes.
Yes, and in my report, I'm going to tell you that I talked with Steve Mrazek from DEQ, and he said that there are just some glitches and things that they are working out. He's a water quality manager. He said that they haven't done anything like this in 8 years, and so they're working their way through it. But he saw absolutely no reason why construction couldn't continue on. And the other related issue is that the chamber and TCCA have also written letters to the DEQ concerning this, and hoping that they'll get it taken care of and move forward, that it'll be put behind us and that we won't have this problem again. So I want to thank Justin for organizing the chamber and the TCCA to do that. Because I was concerned that construction was not going to move forward if this was going to hold it up even longer. And that's why I reached out to ask that question. And I think I told you at the last meeting that I would do more research on it. So thank you for asking. So any other questions of Paul? Okay, I took a drive to Corvallis and picked up our tree, our ginkgo tree, which we then planted in Carnahan Park. And remember, the ginkgo tree is from the seeds from Hiroshima. And so we planted the tree on the 24th, Carnahan Park, and there'll be a more public acknowledgement that will follow when restrictions have been eased. Paul and I met with Muhammad Ali from TCCA to discuss preliminary plans for their reopening the visitors center, and there will be more information on that coming forward to you as plans are made. A real popular thing within the community has been the birthday parades. And so if you see people out with signs and horns and things, they're probably honoring some little child who is having a birthday and needs some extra recognition.
I think
You know, one little.
we're
Pardon?
calling them auto tours now.
Yes, auto tour. I know there was one little boy that was really happy about it. I've been taking part in many Zoom and phone meetings from county leadership, which is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I sent you the link to that. That is now not going to be meeting on Wednesdays. It's just going to be meeting on Mondays and Fridays. The county is having several listening sessions all up and down the county to talk with vacation rentals and restaurants and all of the people that are concerned with all of the aspects of reopening. And I think that they're building their plan. And I think that, you know, we can I've added my opinions to those listening sessions. And so I think that we will see movement forward. I've also been participating in the CTAB and the emergency management team meetings to see what other counties are doing and what we're doing, especially in the emergency management field, and League of Oregon Cities, and the LIPSIG, the Law Enforcement Committee. That also was very interesting. Reentry, reopening discussions on many, many levels. Frameworks are being developed. The governor's office is playing an integral part in this. And Jennifer Purcell has done a lot of presentations on the framework. And you can find that in the LOC website. Also EDC and the Educational Foundation this week will be considering scholarships for our kids. You know, they put off a lot of awarding of scholarships because of the pandemic, and so and on all kinds of levels. And so kids are waiting and anxious to go forward, seeing as how they're not going to have a formal traditional graduation. At this point in time, the school district is going to have a graduation ceremony that's going to look more like a car touring. And so you'll be able to sit in your car at the fairgrounds and be able to see them on the big screen, as I understand it now. And I told you about talking with Steve Mrazek from DEQ. And I think that concludes my report, other than to say that, you know, for staying at home all the time, I don't think I've ever been busier in my life. I've never listened to so much stuff. It's some days there's 4 or 5 of these things, and I have discovered what I can do while I'm listening, what I can't do. So it's kind of, that part is kind of interesting too. But that concludes my report. We've already addressed the Long Prairie Water District request, and we'll have more information after Paul meets and develops his proposal for that. So we'll go on to council concerns. Aaron?
Have we opened all of these tablets that I'm using right now? Have we used these? We have not. We might want to reconsider. It's pretty bad. So just throw that out there before we open them all up.
Brian?
Just want to give a quick out to the teachers. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week. Yes, I'm one of those, but I see how hard my colleagues are working on behalf of the students of this community. And there's some really good burnout starting to happen as they put in so many hours and trying to develop a whole new way of teaching. So that's it for me.
Some days I'll see Scott out in the yard and I'll say, "What you been doing today, Scott?" And he said, "I've been in front of the computer all day long teaching." And so I agree with you. I concur. It's a difficult time. John?
Earlier, we congratulated Brian on his birthday, and we have one more person here that we ought to congratulate. Our pal Rebekah over here in the corner of this thing earned a master's degree and was awarded the diploma sometime this last month. That's what you said on Facebook.
No, I did not.
Yes, you did.
No, I will be completing my bachelor's degree at the end of this month. I'm not really sure what we're referring to, but I do not have a master's degree and I'm not yet finished. I'm getting close to the finish line, but I'm still working very hard to complete that bachelor's degree.
He just gave you one. You could take it.
Never mind, that concludes my report.
Thank you so much.
Rebekah?
I wanted to extend a warm welcome to Tim Sadler. Welcome to the team. And to say thanks to everybody who's working really hard. It's kind of odd because this pandemic either causes people to have to work extra hard or it leaves everybody at home with nothing to do. So if you're one of those people who's at home with nothing to do, maybe think of ways that you can help out. I've noticed, walking our dogs around the community, there's a lot of trash being just thrown out on the side of the road in the parks. So maybe take the family for a trash pickup safely with, gloves and sticks and things like that, or reach out to local organizations and see if there's a way you can chip in, because I think this is stressful for everybody in different ways. So maybe help where you can and extend compassion in all things. Thank you.
Have you noticed how many rubber gloves are in the trash alongside of the road? Whole new dimension to trash.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Jorge?
Yeah, I just wanted to pass on a concern that Public Works sent to me on Friday. They sent me a picture of looks like a homeless camp that's kind of behind the old Chevy dealership in the park there, or not the park, but I guess in the trees in the area that we had talked about possibly harvesting at some point. But it looked pretty extensive. Looked like there's some multiple tents and lots of garbage and stuff like that. So I don't know really what we can do about it, but I guess just kind of for awareness and I don't know that it's anything that law enforcement can really deal with. They're probably busy with other things, and even if they had time, they have to find the people when they're there and all that kind of a thing, and I don't even know. So anyway, just to kind of I told them I would bring it up, and they showed me the pictures and looked pretty bad, so I just said I'd bring it up, and maybe somebody has ideas on what we can do there.
Paul?
I'll just add real quick that I have had meetings with representatives from the owner, and they're actually have that very same concern. They've had some vandalism inside the building. They're actually looking at a substantial development, which is good news. It's still at the very beginning stages, but I think there's going to be some cleanup around that property somewhere in the near future.
Good. That's good to hear, because it seems like there's a lot of trash dumping and all kinds of stuff there too.
Yes,
so.
there is.
Doug?
I think this is a job that Ukiah is going to inherit, but we're at that time of year where we need to send out notices to the people that have their flower gardens in Goodspeed Park. They're looking kind of shabby. And on that note, I know we have several subcommittees. Are we just kind of putting them on hold and not meeting until we get through this pandemic? So we will not be holding out. I mean, there's a couple other items with the beautification committee, whether I don't know whether to just leave them alone for now or try to move them along without having a meeting. I don't know what our thoughts are on that.
Something you should know, Doug, too, is that the plan for the shell triangle down here has been presented to ODOT. Paul has taken care of doing that, and they right now are deliberating on the approval of that plan for that area. And that's something that's directly, impacted by the beautification committee.
Well, Suzanne, and on that note, what was suggested to me by our engineer was that we get ODOT to sign that over as a park. And that will open up several doors and several avenues to a lot more grants if it's considered a park by ODOT.
Well, or I think Paul can address what ODOT will do with that piece of property. Paul?
Right. They have already offered us some deeds on the surrounding properties. The Shell station they were going to keep ownership of. And as the mayor mentioned, they're considering the Shell station master plan, if you will, now, and then they'll respond to us with how to structure that legally. I have the same proposal before them that I think it would be good if we can designate it as parks, but at the same time, they've got their issues with what they call it from the state perspective, because it's part of their right of way. So it's going to get a little confusing, but we're going to be working out the bugs on that probably over the next few months, Doug. Because it is with ODOT, it won't be simple.
Right.
And that's a given. But for now, we're putting a temporary hold on any of our subcommittees as far as a meeting. And so we can have, I think Abby was the one that sent out the notices to the people in Goodspeed that had the flower beds. So I assume that's something Ukiah would take over, or at least somebody in City Hall.
I'll tell you about it.
Know that it's time to clean them up.
Yeah, Ukiah doesn't know anything about this, but yes.
We'll talk to him about this. It's another one of those blessed tasks, yes.
You don't let me get a word in edgewise?
No.
I don't think so. Has there been a decision made on the June dairy parade?
No. Justin is going to speak to that at our next meeting.
Okay, so no decision yet. I get asked by a lot of people.
I know.
I'm really glad to hear that the farmers market was able to figure out a way to stay in operation. So that's a positive. That's all I have.
The farmers market in Hillsborough is a drive-by farmers market. And that's really interesting to see how they operate. You have one way in and you make your orders to the people and they just hand them to you and take the money.
They had one of those in California a few years back. A drive-through farmers market.
Yeah. Okay. We did have one thing that I was going to mention to you, that not everyone is cognizant of all of the restrictions on landlords at this point in time. And so, if anybody's watching this and they're not sure of the rent not forgiveness, but delay that is given to people now throughout this pandemic, have them call me because I've had to intervene in a couple of situations where someone said to one of their tenants, if you don't pay the rent, I'm turning the electricity on you and your children off in 72 hours. And so it made for a bit of a problem, but we got it taken care of. But it has taught me that not everyone pays attention to the news and what is required of us during this difficult time. So
that was actually a Kate Brown screw up, but we won't get into that.
Thank you. Jorge.
I move that we pay the bills.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we give authority to authorization to pay the bills. Paul, will you take the vote of the council, please?
Sure. Councilor Burris.
Aye.
Councilor Hopkins.
Aye.
Councilor Rios.
Aye.
Councilor Reynolds.
Aye.
And Councilor Sandusky.
Aye.
And Councilor Henson.
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. And Brian, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thanks for giving up the big party in order to come to the city council. And with that,
Let me clarify, the birthday was last Thursday.
Well, you get to celebrate for a month anyway. So.
Yeah. And now you officially get to turn 1 year older, because if nobody really acknowledges you, you don't have to get a year older. Okay, thanks everybody for being here. And with that, stay safe. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.